Well, when I played with Atlantic City, I played with Wild Bill Davis. He had one amplifier, one speaker,
Okay.
and this is in Atlantic City. And when Wild Bill Davis got two big speakers and hooked it up, it was all over the place. So the organ definitely has a bigger sound, and Mr. D is able to bring it all out.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Jeff for Chicago Jazz Magazine, ChicagoJazz.com, and welcome to another episode of Around Town. We have one of our favorite guests on, George Freeman, the great George Freeman, guitarist from Chicago. Of course, he's toured all over the world back in the day, and actually pretty recently too. But the exciting news is he's got a brand new release coming out called The Good Life. It's on New York City's HighNote Records. He's got his annual birthday show happening up there at the Green Mill on April 7th and 8th. And man, oh man. And of course, he's got a good friend of his coming in to play with him on this birthday show, Bernard Pretty Purdy. So all that's happening up at the Green Mill, the 7th and 8th. The new release is happening, and his 96th birthday is happening on April 10th. George, I don't know how you have the energy to do all this stuff. Congratulations on everything you have happening, man. And I'm so excited to hear all this stuff.
You know, you sound so exciting. Oh, I could talk all day. No, this is great. I'm looking forward to it. This is a great moment in my life, really, because the record's coming out and hopefully the record comes out, and then I'm at the Green Mill and playing with all these great musicians again. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the recording here, The Good Life, right? And looking over it, you've got 5 original tunes on there, which is amazing. You keep writing and composing music. And then you've got like 2 different killer rhythm sections playing with you. You've got Christian McBride and Carl Allen in one section. And then you've got the great late Joey DeFrancesco and Nash in the other session. Talk a little bit about that. Have you ever played with any of those guys in the past? I mean, I know you've played with everybody. I don't know if have you ever hooked up with those guys before this recording session?
Well, yeah, I'm very glad that you asked that. Why? Because when they got me together, they wanted me to ask me what organ player I wanted to play with. You know, that's the first thing they asked me, because they got organ players all over the country. I played with Richard Holmes. I played with Jimmy McGriff. I played with Wild Bill Davis. I think I played with all of the organ players, the lady organ players at that time, the Greek organ. But Mr. D is the one that I heard, and I was so impressed with his playing. Never thought I'd play with him, of course. And when they got together for us to play with Mr. D, Mr. D called me on the telephone. That's where that song Mr. D come from. Mm-hmm. He come to the telephone. He said, "George, I remember you when I was a kid." And I used to play in Philadelphia. Oh. And that's when I played a tune called Frantic Diagnosis. But Mr. D had to be a kid at that time. But he said, "I remember you as a kid." And he said, "I'm worried," because they asked me who I wanted to play with. I said, "Mr. D." Yeah. So when I got a chance to work with him, I was just, they got him for me to play with. And I was so thrilled, because when he got here, he was so delightful. And incidentally, his birthday is the same day as mine, April the 10th. You couldn't beat that. And we met, and we had no problems whatsoever. And so I wrote this tune, Mr. D, purposely. And unfortunately, outside of the record, recording the record, he never had a chance to hear it. Oh. I wish he could have.
Yeah, it's such a shame. You know, he was one of my favorites, man, Joey DeFrancesco. Yeah, and I mean, you know, You're talking about organ players, and especially like, B3 organ players. I mean, Jimmy Smith, I know you've played with all of them, but talk a little bit about just the difference between playing with bass, drums, and guitar. But when you have that organ, man, it's like a freight train behind you, isn't it? I mean, it probably opens you up to be able to do a whole lot of other stuff with the guitar because it's just such a groove happening underneath you, right?
Well, when I played with Atlantic City, I played with Rob Bill Davis. He had one amplifier, one speaker,
Okay.
and this is Atlantic City. And when Wild Bill Davis got two big speakers and hooked it up, it was all over the place. So the organ definitely has a bigger sound, and Mr. D is able to bring it all out.
Well,
So, yeah, he brings it all that way. He's a good compass. He comp very well, and he supports you very well. And also, he listens. Not only does he play, he listens to what you are doing, so he can coincide what you are playing. So Mr. D and I hit it off very well. As I said before, he remembered me when he was a kid, because I used to work in Philadelphia. And actually live in Philadelphia. So he remembered me when I was a kid. So when they asked me who I wanted to play with, I said Mr. D, and he was shocked, of course. But it's wonderful to know that Mr. D, he heard me play before. So when we got into the studio, it was no problem.
yeah.
Yes, where I wanted to play. So I told him. So he played just like that. No problem.
How did it come about to have Lewis Nash on that session specifically? Was he in town for something too, or what was he?
Well, yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. They got Mr. D and I to work together on the record session.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. D asked me, he said, "Well, who you got playing drums?" I said, "Well, I don't have a drummer." Well, he and Lewis and Nash were coming into the jazz showcase.
That's right.
So he got Lewis Nash to play the set with me.
Yeah.
And Lewis Nash got here and laid it out. Well, and then I was supposed to go into the jazz showcase. Mr. D wanted me to come in the jazz showcase for him, but I couldn't make it because at the time it had been too much for me. Working the record session, then working the jazz showcase. So I didn't make the jazz showcase, but Mr. D and Nash worked it out very well. So
well, talk about the other session too, because you have Christian McBride and Carl Allen on that session. I mean,
oh, that was just a big. Christian McBride got to be the greatest bass player in the world. At least he got to be one of them. One of them. Yeah, but he was just simply great. He walked in the door and he said, "Hi there." I mean, this is something else. They all heard of me, and I knew, it's just wonderful how they walk in the door and they just glad to meet you.
Yeah,
that's the session right there when they're glad to meet you, because you can walk in the door and don't like each other. I don't like him. But nothing like that. And Christian played that big bass, and he gets a bass sound.
Yeah.
He makes a bass sound like a bass.
Yeah.
So it was just enjoyable. I enjoyed Mr. D. I enjoyed him. I enjoyed Chris. I enjoyed him also.
Yeah, Carl Allen on drums with that session too. That had to be incredible. That groove that you guys probably set up, right?
Yeah, he was just a bit great too. He set a groove. He was quiet. He didn't try to get overbearing. He just played quiet and softly. He went all over the place, And so it was great.
Yeah,
love it.
So let me ask you. So I mean, you've played a million jazz standards, obviously, but what keeps you interested in continuing to write music? I mean, you're writing original music still. It doesn't, I don't know, some people might just run out of ideas and they're just like, well, I don't know. I don't have anything I'm not thinking about. Your mind must keep going all the time. And you must be continuously getting creative and writing and composing music still. I mean, are you just thinking about stuff all the time? I mean, is that how stuff's coming out of you?
Well, that's a very good question to ask me because I usually don't mention about me writing music.
Yeah.
Because I just get up there and play. Like when I go to the Green Mill, my nephew tells me all the time, why don't you mention the fact that you play sandwich? Why don't you mention the name of the sandwich? What you about? I said, I can't do that. I said, because I'll lose the groove. I said, if I got up there on stage and then took time to mention that I did this, I did that, the groove will leave.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do when I get up there on the stage, I go from tune to tune. You don't even get a chance to go to the bathroom because I don't give you a chance to walk. But like I said before, some artists get up there and then they talk about, well, I wrote this tune in 1945, and I hope you're in. Well, my groove is gone.
Yeah.
I lost my groove. So they let you keep your groove going, and we go tune to tune.
One of my favorite drummers, Roy Haynes, and I know you've probably played with Roy back in the day, but I remember the second set always at the showcase, you never knew what Roy you were going to get. And he might tell a 45-minute story about something and play like 3 songs. And that was like the whole set, the second set, talking about driving down Lakeshore Drive in a convertible with Sarah Vaughan and Joe Siegel had to bail him out of jail. So I don't know.
Oh, man, that is so, that's so true.
You just made me remember that. Man. Well, hey, so talk a little bit about, so you've got Bernard Purdie coming in. And he's playing with you. I know he's been in, I don't know, maybe the past 10 times you've been up there at the Green Mill, and Bernard started coming in because you guys have a relationship that you've played a bunch together in the past, right? And it was nice to make a reconnection when he first started coming up. How did you first meet Bernard Purdie? You remember that?
Yes, I remember Bernard Purdie very well because we were put together years ago by some person that brought Bernard Purdie into town. I didn't know Bernard Purdie at the time, but Bernard Purdie was the featured attraction, and he asked me would I play with him, and so I played with Bernard, and Bernard paid me over the scale. He was so delighted in my playing, and then I worked with him again with Jimmy McGriff. He's a good drummer. He's a powerful drummer.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about that. He's a powerful drummer, but also he's a showman.
Oh, yeah.
So you can turn it over to Bernard and he'll take over. But which I don't mind at all. The Green Mill, they love him down there. So because he's a showman. He puts on a show and
has to be kind of nice too, because I mean, you played with your brother Von Freeman, and when Bruz was around, I mean, Von and you kind of playing together, it took a little load off of you if Von was up there, right? Because Von could solo, but he could talk to the audience and be himself, right? So that kind of loosens everything up. It's nice to have somebody else on the gig that it's not just on you all the time. It's nice to hand it over to somebody else and let him do his thing, and everybody's excited about seeing them, right? I mean, it's kind of nice that way.
Great. I'm so glad to hear you say that because Von was a good speaker anyway.
Yeah.
And Bruz was too. They both good speakers and good players. But I enjoy when I got with people out there like Gene Evans and Sonny Stitt and Dexter Garland, they didn't do no talking.
Oh, really?
Occasionally Gene Evans would do talking, but Sonny Stitt didn't do no talking.
He just
And
play one tune to he would just play one tune to another and just
yeah,
be up there.
that's what I do anyway on stage. I just go from one tune, as I say, one tune into another, because I don't want to lose the groove.
Yeah.
So once you lose the groove, it's going to be hard to get that groove back again.
Yep.
So that's why I don't do any talking, and and playing the guitar like that. The guitar can be done like that because you can hit a chord, and the band can follow you. Whereas when you play a horn, you got to put it in your mouth and so forth and so on like that. But
yeah,
but I don't do too much talking. I don't have time.
Well, you're burning through all these tunes,
I'm
man.
trying to find the groove.
Recording, of course, The Good Life. It's coming out at the Mill. It's a release event, and that's going to be April 7th and 8th at the Green Mill, greenmilljazz.com. Get there early. There's 2 shows I saw, and I know you need to get there early because when George is there, there's a line around the block, and you don't want to be at the back of the line when the last show ends. That means you didn't see anything. So get there early and buy 10 or 12 copies of the release. Everybody, that's my advice to you. I think George would probably agree with me too.
Thank you so much for saying that. And
But
you not like it's a line around the block.
That's, hey man, every time I've been over there and you're over there, there's a line down the street. And I always say you don't want to be at the end of the line when the door shuts. You know, that's the end of that. So
that is so funny. Thank you so much.
wow. Congratulations, man. And 96 on April 10th. It's all coming together here.
Wow, you sure got it together. You sure that we haven't met? Oh my goodness, you niggas sound fantastic. I gotta go I got to be there myself to see this. Thank you so much.
Get there early, George. You don't want to stand in line to get to your own gig. So
thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Okay.
Absolutely. All right, George, thank you so much. And hang tight for 1 second. And of course, everybody, I love talking to George, and I thank you all for watching. Of course, as I always say, everything is available on chicagojazz.com. Until next time, hopefully I will see you all somewhere out on the scene.